Thank you so much. I have no idea what you said about me, but I assume it was good things.
I encourage everybody to join me and for the clap and the warm
Super.
welcome.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah.
Which one do I use? I have two clickers. It already starts confusing. Let me check. Oh, this one works. Okay, I will leave that one alone. All right, it's great to be here. I had only one very tiny coffee, so I hope I will get through this keynote. What is it with big countries serving small coffees? You have to do something about that, France. I'm from the Netherlands, a small country, but we serve big coffees. Maybe to compensate for that. I don't know. Um, but anyway, it's great to be here. Before we start, I have a little surprise for you. I wrote this book, Human Robot Agent, and I have a chance for some of you. Well, actually, one person in this room is going to win this copy, and it is the hardcover, full color version. The only thing you need to do somewhere during my keynote is scan that QR code. I will show it a few times. Scan it, leave your name and email so I can send things to you. One of you will get this book. And I will pick the person at the end of my talk. Everyone else will get the full PDF, the entire book in PDF, right, in full color. And by the way, there are two editions of the book. This is the full color edition. I suggest that you do not buy it. It's too expensive. It's insane. What Amazon charges me just for printing it and for the shipping, I didn't even dare adding royalties on top of that. That was just embarrassing. So I earn nothing with the full color version. So please buy the black and white version, right? That earns me a couple of euros. So if you fill out your name, I will pick up a winner at the end, and everyone else will get the PDF version. That's my promise to you. So I'm sure some of you know me for the work I've done earlier with Mansion 3.0 and later the unfixed model, and I wrote 5 books, well 6 books by now, and I noticed that my life is changing because of AI. Yes, we're going to talk about that today. I'm probably not the only one talking about AI. Normally, writing a book cost me about 1,000 hours. With my novel, Glitches of Gods, it took me 4,000 hours. That's a lot of work. But the recent one, Human Robot Agent, cost me 500 hours. That was the half. Because I had a team of agents, a team of AIs helping me with the research and double checking my writing as if they were copy editors, etc. It was all much faster. And basically that's about the human bottleneck that we are trying to address. The brain is a bottleneck. Let me give you an example of how the world is getting increasingly complicated. I was watching a TV show a couple of months ago, Foundation on Apple TV. I like sci-fi. It's complete nonsense, but it's a fun TV show. And I was at episode 7 in my video room, casting from my notebook because it's on Apple TV and I have a Windows notebook, so I had to use Google Cast. And then at episode 7, the sound didn't work. But the previous episodes, everything worked. In the same room, same equipment, and then episode 7, the next week, I didn't get it to work. I tried everything. I checked the sound, I checked the casting, I turned devices on and off, nothing worked. Then I thought, let's switch to Spotify on my computer. Maybe there I can figure it out. And Spotify didn't send any sound either. And then I turned Spotify as loud as I could, and then I heard ka-chee, 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 ka-chee from another room. Like, what is going on? So I went to another room, to my home office, and there I found in my suitcase my Bluetooth speakers were playing the music. And they also had been playing the sound of Foundation for half an hour already, and I just couldn't hear it in the other room. And at that moment I felt, I'm getting too old for this shit. Jeez, I spent 25 minutes just trying to find where is the sound in my house. It was so easy 30 years ago. You just walk too fast, you turn the volume knob, the power button, and ta-da, you have sound. And now you spend 25 minutes discussing with your devices, where is the music? At that moment, I needed an agent. I needed an AI helping me out. But sadly, Google Home is not sophisticated enough yet that it can solve these problems for me. But that is a bit the direction where we're going. People use AI to do tasks, people who use AI to do tasks enjoy their work more, as I noticed, and they feel they're better able to use their talents and their ability. And they want to outsource that crappy, meaningless work to the AIs. And that's what I have been doing as well. The crappiest stuff of my work, that is done by the agents. I mean, the research, what usually takes me hours, that now takes me just minutes with Gemini and ChatGPT and so on. And one of my favorite use cases is using AI to detect patterns in my writing and match it with scientific research or other stuff out there in the world. For example, when I write, as an Agile coach, you tend to influence the team. You cannot just observe the team, you will be influencing them. And then my AI agent says, that's the Hawthorne effect. Yeah, of course, the Hawthorne effect. I should mention that in my book. Makes me look smart if I mention that. And another example, we overestimate how technology changes in the short term, but we underestimate the effects in the long term. And then the AI says, that's the Amara's law. It has a name, Amara's law. Maybe I should mention that in my book. It's a super smart copy editor giving me all these suggestions. One of my favorite was, I always say, I'm a short-term pessimist and a long-term optimist. Every day sucks, but things will be fine. It will work out, but every day is a struggle. Right? And then the AI said, that's the Stockdale paradox. The Stockdale paradox. I had never heard of the Stockdale paradox, but indeed, someone already invented this. And I can mention it in my book. That's what AI is for. It helps you do better work. But I still want to be the one who has the insights, who has the ideas. So everything starts with me. I am the one who has the ideas, and then I have my AIs give feedback on those ideas, because I don't think we should outsource the insights to AI. That is also a comment in this book by Daniela Ross and Gregory Moan. One of the true joys of learning, especially learning broadly, is the wellspring of human achievements. The insights, that's for us. We should be the ones with the wisdom, and I'll be coming back to that later. So I'm going to explain this picture to you at the end, but first let's zoom in on the blue part: simple, complicated, inscrutable. We already knew about simple and complicated. There are other models for that explaining the difference, but I think we're now getting into an age where things get so complicated that we just give up. It becomes inscrutable, the situation. Like the music problem in my house, that was almost inscrutable for me. I almost didn't figure it out. Because everything depends on everything. And a nice example is AI itself. There are very few people on the planet who can actually explain in detail how AI works. For most of us, it's inscrutable. It's just too complicated, more complicated than complicated. Also, the GPU chips that they use for training LLMs and hosting those machines, those intelligences, too complicated for us. Inscrutable is the word that we can use there. Everything gets more intricate. I will get back to this picture a couple of times. Now, you've heard I've been working on Management 3.0, and I had some successes there, but rewind a good number of years. In the 90s, after I finished my studies as a software engineer in Delft, the first thing I did was I went into education and freelancing and teaching people how to migrate from DBase to Microsoft Access, from Lotus 123 to Microsoft Excel. Anyone know that that era in the 90s? Yeah, some hands go up. Yeah, yeah, just as old as I am. From WordPerfect to Microsoft Word. And I did all the programming courses. So using Visual Basic for applications, I made courses and I gave those courses. And I quickly figured out that I loved making the courses, but I hated doing the same course again and again. That was boring. I was a creative. I was not really a facilitator. I wanted to design things. But the company that I worked with, the training company, had a great idea. They said, well, let's license your materials to other training companies. So the materials that I made were licensed to everyone else in the Netherlands, and we made big money. And that was awesome. And there I learned the benefit of a scalable business model. You make it once, you sell it many times. So you don't get paid per hour. Well, fast forward, 2010, my book came out, Management 3.0. I had been employed for 7 years as a CIO, development manager, CIO. And some people said, Lisa Crispin, I believe it was, she said, you're going to get requests for courses because this is great stuff, management, agile management and leadership. And then I remembered, well, if that's true, I'm going to hate doing the same course myself again and again. But I love making the courses. I love making the games and the exercises. So I brought that idea from licensing from a completely different world. I brought that into Agile because nobody was doing that in 2010. All the other writers and speakers in the Agile community, they were giving their own courses, making their own, and creating their own certificates around it, basically. But I was sort of the first one who said, no, I'm going to license it. And then a number of years later, we had 3, 4, at some point 500 Management 3.0 licensees around the world. That is an example of knowledge transfer. That is what M-skilled people do, the generalists. They can take an idea from one domain to another domain. The bigger the picture, the more unique the potential human contribution. Our greatest strength is the opposite of narrow specialization, said David Epstein in his book, Range. And basically what we are now doing is moving from the T-shaped person to the M-shaped person. So the T-shaped person has one vertical leg, one specialization, like software engineer or something. And then that person branches out, does some product management, does some testing, so that the person can be more productive on a cross-functional team. We've been talking about that for 20 years in the Agile community. Nowadays, instead of one vertical leg, we're going to have 2 or even 3 vertical legs with a horizontal bar between them. Why? Well, there are a couple of reasons. One is AI is taking over one specialization after the other. Software engineers are finding that out. Copy editors have found it out. Writers. Now the video market is in big turmoil because of VO and Sora and other video generators. So the advertising market is having a big disruption moment now. AI is taking over one specialization after the other. So it's best to have multiple. It's risking your, hedging your bets, having options. But also, if you have multiple specializations, it is easier to transfer knowledge from one domain to the other. They know that most Nobel Prize winners are actually experts in multiple domains. They're like microbiologist and astrophysicist or something like that. Because that makes it easier for them to have creative ideas by abstracting an idea from one specialization and applying it somewhere else. This is incredibly useful in the age of AI because that's what us humans can do. The AIs cannot easily do that. And that's where we, humans, can make a distinction. So I found this quote, morphing from T-shaped to M-shaped is just one example of how to use AI. It might even be the very definition of what AI is doing to us. AI is pushing us from T-shaped to M-shaped. The people have multiple skills, they own the future. If you have multiple specializations instead of just one, and just having just one is going to be a dangerous situation to be in. So in this picture, I tie that to the red part, the modularity part of the model. Modularity is how many different parts do you have and that you can reconnect in different ways. And tight modularity is like, well, it's like an airplane. It's one big thing and you cannot cut it in half, then you don't have an airplane. A train would be different. A train is modular. You can cut a train in half and you still have a train, right? As long as you have a locomotive, it still works as a train. So having multiple specializations also makes you more modular as a human. Actually, I think that is what AI is doing to us. It gives us more options in the marketplace of work. But there's plenty more that we'll go through. So this is basically an overview of the most interesting trends and insights that I have collected in the last year or so about how AI is impacting us humans at the psychological and sociological level. Because I'm not much interested in the technological level, like how to do prompting. There are so many other people writing about prompts and how to create AI agents. Super interesting, but that's not my specialization. I want to understand what is the impact on humans? How does it change our teams? That is what is relevant for us. And I noticed that we're going to have to be more agile than ever. And I'm sure, like me, you have seen some of those articles that say Agile is dead. I contributed myself with Agile is undead. It looks dead, but still walking around. At the same time, and I also wrote that in my article, I think Agile is more important than ever. But maybe we're not calling it Agile anymore. Agile, actually, the AI industry is, I think, the most agile industry that I have ever seen. The pace of change is relentless in the world of AI, but nobody refers to it as agile. It's just the new way of working. And that is a good thing, I think. So I think agile has been pronounced dead even more often than Elon Musk has promised self-driving cars, right? And we still don't have them. Anyways, as one example of how to be even more agile than before, imagine team structure. Now, I've talked about reteaming before in earlier keynotes about the unfix model, where we promoted the idea of reteaming. But this becomes even more interesting in the age of AI, to have fluid team structures. For example, think of hospitals. When someone is rushed into a hospital, maybe after being hit by Elon Musk's self-driving car or something, and the people in the hospital have to save that person's life, is rushed into the operating room, which team is going to save that person's life, right? Is that a fixed, steady Scrum team that never changes and that says, yeah, but we'll have to wait for the next sprint planning to put this on our sprint backlog? That's next Monday. It's Wednesday now. We can't do that mid-sprint. No, it's going to be a team that will be assembled on the spot, right there, with whoever is available, multiple specialists, right? Multiple doctors and nurses and whatever. They will rush to the operating room. And I can tell you one thing for sure. On their way to the operating room, they will not be quickly making a team agreement. Like, how are we going to work with each other? What's going to be our team name? What are our values? No, no time for that. They have to save someone's life. They already know how to work with each other. Same with fire departments. When the fire department crew is sent into a city to put out a fire, I'm pretty sure when they're on the fire truck, they will not be going through the stages of forming, storming, norming, performing. They already know how to work with each other. They're trained to work with each other in various constellations. Now, of course, it has a reason why in the Agile community we have often said, you should stick together as one team. Don't break up the teams because it ruins their productivity. It ruins velocity. Even if you change one team member, you ruin velocity. I heard people say quite a few times at conferences in the past. But but it also makes you slower to adapt to sudden changes in the environment, to seize on opportunities and respond to risks and calamities if you have to wait for things to be put on a backlog with a fixed team. The reason is that that we were struggling with cognitive load. Team Topologies explained all that in their book. If you have to switch between different projects, that is difficult for the human brain. Again, the human brain is a bottleneck there. It is hard. But imagine a doctor moving from one operating room to the other. The doctor saves 3 people's lives, maybe 4 that day. Doesn't know anything about the patients, but understands human bodies in general. And as soon as he or she comes into the room, they see a dashboard with metrics: heart rate, heartbeat, heart rate, blood pressure, brain activity, previous treatments, medication, whatever the hospital knows about this person's medical dossier and current situation. So they get a dashboard of information, and then the specialists can do their thing. What if that would be the same for architects and software engineers? We already see that happening, that AIs provide an up-to-date presentation of everything about a product, the current architecture, about the architecture, how it actually is right now, not how an intern described it 2 years ago in a document that nobody reads. No, how the architecture actually is at this moment according to the AI, with the latest changes, who did what the effects were, etc. And then the specialist comes in and they can do their job. We're moving in that direction. While human-to-human interactions are shaped by our cognitive limitations, collaborating with AI opens up new possibilities that challenge our traditional understanding of cognitive constraints. And one of these challenges is to team structure, because the cognitive constraint is being solved with AI. It's going to be much, much easier to switch between projects, between products. And that makes you more agile if you're able to do that. There's a benefit there. Other industries have long figured this out. To meet customer demand and maximize revenue, the workforce must function as a cohesive unit, necessitating the development of teaming skills. You need to be able to form teams fast in different constellations, responding to opportunities and threats. The airline industry has been doing this for decades. They've long figured out that it makes sense to standardize on one type of plane, so that reduces the cognitive load of their pilots and their cabin personnel, and then they can form dynamic teams from one plane to the other, because the cost for them is the planes and not the personnel. So there's a very different kind of picture. I tie that to scalability in this case. What is scalability? Well, there's a difference between sublinear scaling versus superlinear scaling. Sublinear scaling is like an elephant or a dinosaur. One animal getting larger and larger, but the bigger it gets, the slower it is. It is not that it's twice as fast when it is twice as big. No, it doesn't work like that with one big system. It actually slows down. It scales sublinearly. It's the same with organizations and vertical scaling, hierarchical scaling. The opposite is superlinear scaling, like bees and ants and flocks of birds. They scale out horizontally. They have many small parts. There's still a large swarm or a large flock. The total biomass could be the same, but it consists of many small things. It allows for scaling, and that is very beneficial, because then you can achieve much more different effects. That's why we prefer networks instead over hierarchies, and I've been talking about that for years in other keynotes as well. And AI, also in this case, is going to help us create more scalable organizations for the reasons I mentioned before. All right, another one, algorithmic management. I was inspired here by a company in China. I've told the story many times. Called Hire, Chinese company. I did a workshop there, managed to do a workshop many years ago in Qingdao in the northeast of China. There were 30 people in the room, cameras in the back, they recorded everything. There was a person standing next to me translating everything I said into Chinese, an interpreter. And he called me Professor Jurgen all the time. I thought that was cute. I'm okay with that. If people call me Professor Jurgen, I don't mind. I'd like to crack a joke every now and then in my workshops. And then I noticed that people were always laughing when I made a joke. And after a while, I got suspicious. About the Chinese translations of my jokes. So during dinner, I asked my translator, so what do you do if I make a joke in English and you cannot easily translate it into Chinese? How does that work? Then he said with a very straight face, in that case, I say, Professor Jurgen made a joke, now we all have to laugh. I loved it. Brilliant. And the guy had no sense of humor, so I'm pretty sure he was honest at that moment. So I loved my visit to China, but one thing I learned there, Hire was a company that had already revolutionized its organizational structure. It had been a traditional pyramid. They had completely fired their middle management layers, or actually convinced them to become CEOs of micro enterprises. 3,000 micro enterprises of 10, 20, 30 people collaborating with each other horizontally. And then you wonder, what happens with all the coordination? Well, that happened with algorithms on the blockchain. They automated everything. So every time different units want to collaborate on a laundry machine or creating a vacuum cleaner or whatever, because they make household appliances, they make contracts. It's all automatic. They create contracts on blockchain, and it's all safe and scalable. And no managers are needed. Why would you need managers for that? They already figured that out 10 years ago. Let them find opportunities, those 4,000 little business units. And they can do whatever they want as long as they make money. and that scaled like crazy. And this was the precursor of what we now call algorithmic management. Companies are figuring out that managers are not adding any value. They're just moving information back and forth and making decisions on behalf of other people who know better. So what's the point? And for some people, this feels liberating when they don't have managers anymore, particularly when they have bad experiences with traditional managers, because the algorithms don't have favored employees. The algorithms do not kiss up and kick down. The algorithms do not play political games with the workforce. The algorithms are neutral and they couldn't care less. Well, there could be bias in the algorithms, but that comes actually from humans. It's not the algorithms themselves who are responsible for that. That's the bias in the training data. That's a very different discussion. But AI can improve transparency in the workplace and align more closely with the expectations of workers and reduce the perceived threats. However, there are also bad examples of algorithmic management. At Amazon, for example, Amazon weaponized workplace devices in use at warehouses that algorithmically directed and disciplined workers. And it exploited these machines to send anti-union messages, because Amazon did not want people in the US to unionize. And they used algorithmic management to push back against unionization. I think that's an evil thing. But does that make the algorithms evil? The algorithm is just a tool. AI is just a tool. It depends on who is using it. For what? What is the intention? What is the culture in the organization? Well, Amazon has a certain organizational culture that not everyone here will agree with, including me. But there are some really great cultures out there, like at Hire, for example. I was incredibly inspired when I was there. And they use algorithmic management to the benefit of employees. So that gets us to the yellow part, ambiguity. Is it good or is it evil? We don't know. It depends. This is the famous answer of every consultant, right? It depends. It's the honest answer. We don't know. Is AI going to kill jobs or create jobs? We don't know. It depends. Some jobs disappear, other jobs will emerge. Is ChatGPT making us stupider or smarter? A bit of both. It depends. It's all ambiguous. So AI is causing a lot of ambiguity in the workplace, and it's up to us humans to figure out how to deal with that. I have the QR code here again. You've seen it a few more times, I think. So this is for the people who still haven't had a chance to take a picture. The slow ones in the audience. I know, you're humans. You're all slow, like me. Everyone is slow compared to the AIs. So feel free. We'll raffle this copy in 15 minutes. The next trend is about value streams. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the concept of the value stream. The Kanban board. There is an interesting issue with the value stream, with and how we usually visualize it with Kanban boards. There is an implicit assumption with value streams that the value follows a predictable path across a number of states. Maybe because of our observations that the work usually goes through these states, so we make these columns. And then we give them labels, maybe work in progress, and then we let the value stream through over that Kanban board. But the hidden assumption is that the value stream is linear and that the states always follow basically that progression of statuses. That is not always the case. Actually, this is under pressure because of AI. I already noticed this myself. In the past, I tried to create Kanban boards for my work. Like I have an idea for a blog post, I write a blog post, and then at some point this could end up in my book, and it might end up in my keynote talks. Sometimes I literally have an idea on stage, but then the idea starts here in my keynote, during my keynote talk. Maybe it then becomes a blog post. At some point it might be in my book. There are other things that emerge while writing my book. Then they might become blog posts later, or maybe in a keynote. I could not describe that process. It felt like chaos. I felt I failed creating my own value stream because the value was going in all directions. The ideas emerged everywhere, basically. And I gave up. And then last year I read this. Businesses need to shift from seeing processes as collections of sequential tasks. In the age of AI, processes become more dynamic and adaptable. Instead of visualizing a process as a collection of nodes along a straight line, it helps to see it as a network of movable, reconnectable nodes, perhaps hubs and spokes. The linear model for process no longer cuts it. This is a fascinating insight. And AI is pushing this bit by bit. Linear processes become less and less linear because of intervention by AI. I just read it yesterday again in another blog post about how to use AI agents well. The simplistic approach, the blog post argued, was just have your traditional value stream and then replace individual components, and then you do prompt chaining. They literally call it prompt chaining. So you have an agent for this part, and an agent for that part, and an agent for that part, but the value still flows through that process. But that's step one, the author argued. The next step is to give up on that process and let the AIs figure it out. You just tell them, this is the end goal, good luck. and then they can call each other services, and you would be surprised at what emerges. So it's a bit the same like packages being delivered. You know where the package is given to the delivery company, you know where it will end up, but the path the package takes from origin to destination is unpredictable. It's stochastic. It is decided in the moment while the package travels, whether it should go this way or that way. And machines are making those decisions. This is how the whole internet works, by the way. IP packets work like that. You cannot predict the path. You can only predict it stochastically, statistic predictions, forecasts you can make, how usually the work flows. This is going to be the same with a lot of the work we have. When we invite AI agents into our work, a lot of that linear representation is going to disappear. We just have a start and a begin state and an end state, and in the middle, it's a bit fuzzy. It's a bit fuzzy, fascinating. And when you combine all the facets of the coming wave, design, management, logistical capabilities of AI, etc., you get a wholesale revolution in the nature of production, says Mustafa Suleyman in his book, The Coming Wave. We cannot even imagine the way we're going to produce things 5, 10 years from now. But one thing's for certain, very few processes are going to be linear then, because the AI agents don't need linear processes. They make things non-linear. That makes things also more volatile. That's the last one. The next one, I mean the orange part. Static, complex, chaotic, very unpredictable how things are going to move through that network of value. And like you, I'm wondering, how the hell are we going to visualize that? Because let's be honest, Kanban does not say you should make columns. No, the Kanban method just says visualize your workflow. But that could be anything. It's just us used to drawing linear processes because our human brain likes linear processes. But visualization of the process could mean something very different in the future. And we may have to give up on the simple Kanban boards. Now here's an important one. I have 2 more and then we wrap it up. I found this quote that was super interesting. Why invest in training a young professional when AI can do the job faster, cheaper, and without the risk of a 2-week notice? AI is faster. It does it at lower cost, higher quality, everyone happy, right? I think this is a bit of an issue with Agile and Lean itself. Because when our only goal is happy customers, more value, faster to happier customers, everyone will be happy if we kick out the juniors. They just slow everything down. They make a mess of stuff. They reduce quality and so on. But you're going to have a problem down the line, as you can imagine. There's a compelling short-term case for cutting novices out of the action when we implement technology. They are still learning, they increase risk, they slow things down, so there's an immediate upside in quality and profit if we just let the experts do their thing. But who will be the next generation of doctors, firefighters, teachers, lawyers, filmmakers? They already struggle with this in many industries, in lawmaking, in software engineering, and so on. And this is something that we have to fix. The career path is broken in many organizations because we treat juniors as task bots. We give them individual tasks and then the seniors tie all the tasks together. But now the seniors can use AIs for those tasks. So what are the juniors going to do? That is a bit of an issue. It's like me when my first talks 15 years ago at conferences. I was a junior. I had barely any clue what I was doing. But I was not creating the slide decks for the senior speaker. I was not bringing coffee to the senior speaker or something like that. No, I did everything on very small stages, in very small meetups. That is how we need to see juniors in the future. Juniors have to do the smallest projects, the smallest products, but everything including with their own team of AIs that they use. And then over time, they get more responsibility and they move to the bigger projects. All right, I think that's reflexivity. The last one, the pink one, is immersion increases. The observer influences the system influences the observer. Juniors influence the seniors influence the juniors. It goes in both directions. Last one, I will do this quickly. The humans in the loop. I talked about self-driving cars before. There's a very interesting discussion. Should we allow humans to intervene or not in self-driving cars? When they see a dangerous situation, should they be able to slam the brake? At Tesla, they say yes. At Waymo, Google's a subsidiary, they say no. There is no possibility for humans to intervene. The car does everything. Because human skills deteriorate if they're not practiced on a consistent basis. And if AI frequently replaces practice, how are the humans going to quality check the AI if they never do the work themselves? If they never drive a car themselves anymore, how on earth are they going to understand a dangerous situation? That's going to be a problem. If your job is to look at a tool go and then say whether it's doing a good or bad job and maybe take over, you're going to have a problem. It has long been known that people adapt to the tools and automation creates complacency. And we're now already seeing that in software engineering, for example. When software engineers switch to a role of just reviewing, when they're only reviewing code, they lose the skill to write the code themselves. And at some point, they won't even be able to review the code anymore because they never wrote something themselves. That's a dangerous situation. And then we have to move from the Tesla model to the Waymo model and not let humans do any reviewing because they're just going to create problems if they intervene. So I call this the wicked framework because of wicked problems. Wicked problems are the problems that are unsolvable, that do not really have a solution, that are too difficult to understand. And too intertwined. And most benchmarks for AI, they test for solvable problems like mathematical equations. How many of you have to solve mathematical equations on a daily basis? Let me see some hands. How many of you solve mathematical equations on a daily basis? I see one, maybe two hands. All right. Well, fine. Let the AIs do that. I don't care. Right? Those are solvable problems, the non-wicked problems. But a wicked problem is like raising a child. How many of you have to raise a child? Many more hands. The human brain is wired for dealing with wicked problems. That's what we're good at. And you never do it well. It's always a problem. You think you did a good job today, well, tomorrow is different. You know that with kids, right? It's a challenge all time, always. You never solve the problem. That's wicked problems. And my point is that with AI, everything pushes out towards the outer regions of the wicked framework. Things become more volatile, more ambiguous, more intricate. And that's where we humans make a difference. We handle the wicked problems, the raising of children and the talking with customers. And let the machines do the non-wicked problems, the complicated mathematical formulas and logistical planning and things like that. It's fine. We're not good at that anyways. I call it the wicked framework, and it's in my book, Human Robot Agent. It's been a long time since the future seemed so unmapped. Facing such uncertainty, it's only natural to have concerns about your jobs, about your careers, about the speed of change, about what it means to be human in an era of increasingly intelligent machines. And I think what it means to be human is to achieve that level of wisdom from data to information, knowledge, wisdom. We are the ones guarding that last level of wisdom because AIs have ascended that hierarchy and now they deal with knowledge. Knowledge work is behind us. Now it is wisdom. It's our responsibility. Should we have algorithmic management or not? What do we do about the juniors and questions like that? The AIs won't fix those problems. We have to fix those. All of that is part of my new work, Human Robot Agent. It is offered as M3K on the market, so which is the successor of Management 3.0 and the unfixed model. We put it all together, the M3K team. If you're interested, there's workshops available on the social and psychological impact of AI. And now we're going to look at my phone and see who won the copy of the book. All right, I'm curious. I should have a good number of names here. Yeah, oh, look at that. Ooh, lots and lots of names. Okay, so I'm going to browse a little like that. Yeah, and okay, I now have 10 random names. Almudena, I need you to give me a random number between 1 and 10. 7. I'm going to count. Yeah. Now I have Denver here. Okay. Okay. 7. Now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That is Amaury Angel. Amaury Angel. Who is Amaury Angel? Over there. All right. Awesome. You win. I will see you at the end. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you're going to play with AI and do the wise thing, because that's what us humans are for. I will be around for an hour or two until lunchtime. So if you want to chat about one of these topics, I will be happy to oblige. Have a great event. Okay, thank you.